Oh, hello and welcome to What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. I am him, and we are here to make you guys some money. And I am here with Mr. James. We are the only two on the wild card episode. We are going to go over every single wild card game on the docket, and we are going to preview them as well as recommend our gambling recommendations for each of those games. James, I hear you have a recommendation, a bet on every single game. Is that accurate?
I do. For the adoring public, I've chosen a side for every single game. I've eked value. I've coached it out. I've nurtured it. I've put it in an adjective. I've done that to get you some value, get you some sweats over every single game. And guess what? You're going to be profitable at the end of it too. You're welcome, America.
You are welcome, and we are so grateful for your present, Mr. James. I really do appreciate you. We do have some viewers in Canada too. That is our second biggest viewership audience is actually from Canada. So Shout out to our friends from up in the north. We really appreciate y'all watching as well.
You guys will be going home with some loonies and toonies if you tune in to this podcast.
I don't even know is sports gambling legal in Canada in all the provinces or just in Saskatchewan?
They have Native American tribal
casinos.
So they're legal there. I'm not 100% sure if betting is legal. You would assume so if they're a British colony, because most of the British colonies have legal gambling. So,
well, there you go. The only bit of news today that's pertinent to our audience is NFL insider, not a public figure, James, who I am sitting sort of next to on the screen, Alabama grad, ties to Alabama. Maybe, who knows, that's where all of his resources come from, all of his insider sources come from. Nick Saban retired today, allegedly. James, are you going to be okay to finish this episode is what I'm trying to ask you.
No, it's confirmed. It's confirmed for sure. He is not pulling a fakeroo. This is not a bait and switch. This is not a fake news report. It is confirmed by my sources. Very sad. It's been a hell of a ride. Without him, I wouldn't have met my wife. I wouldn't be the man I am today. And I wouldn't have had the greatest 4 years of my life. So I got to say, shout out to Nick Saban, well-earned retirement, and we appreciate all that he's done for the university. Odds, I'm very interested to see what the odds are for the next head coach. If I had to say there's a favorite, Dan Lanning would be your probably odds-on favorite.
Okay, so Dan Lanning, that's a insider recommendation potentially. James doesn't know nothing about it. Obviously, there's nothing he knows about it. Just a wild guess shot in the dark based off of nothing, I'm sure. So there you go.
That is anybody about this, definitely.
No, and you're definitely not Urban Meyer, right? Don't pick Urban Meyer.
If we picked Urban Meyer, I would legitimately have to have the man murdered. I would not allow it. I would put out a hit. I would take all my gambling winnings and put a hit out on him. So I really hope Urban Meyer doesn't get murdered in the next 3 days, or the FBI is going to be knocking.
Delete the episode. I'm sure Urban Meyer, it wouldn't be the first time Urban Meyer got himself in a little bit of trouble. Meatloaf the cat, always finding the camera over here. When I got it facing the couch, she's behind me. When I got it facing this way, she always finds her way to fill in right behind me. So shout out to Meatloaf the cat joining us for this episode. Moving on, we're going to start today with our odds to win the Super Bowl, which I'm going to pull up right now. Here they are. The odds to win the Super Bowl. Y'all can see the Niners and the Ravens for the NFC and the AFC odds on favorite, with the Niners being heavy favorites to win. Y'all can see all the way down, a little bit surprising to me that the Bills are that high, as well as the Cowboys. It's a little bit of a surprise for me to see them that high. Of course, you got a bunch of dumbass Cowboys fans that'll bet on them no matter what. So maybe that's what they're calculating in there. The two ones that really, really, really pop to me when I read through this list, and James, tell me what you think afterwards, is the Cleveland Browns here at plus 1,000, the number one passing defense in the NFL, currently in yards per attempt for the opponent. We'll go over it in a little bit later, but Joe Flacco would be like a top 5 fantasy football quarterback if he would have started every week of this season, and faced some pretty stout passing defenses, including the Jets was the best passing defense that he faced, and handled it extremely well. A lot of those games being outside, of course, in Cleveland to end the season. And you're probably going to think I'm going to say the Detroit Lions because my favorite NFC team, I grew up a Lions fan. My favorite AFC team is the Browns fan. So I've been a Browns fan for 6 years or so now. Is not the Detroit Lions. Instead, it is the team that the Detroit Lions are playing this week, the LA Rams, sitting currently at plus 4,000. So those are, I don't know, man, those are some pretty spicy odds. Am I doing the math right? $1 to win 30 for the Browns, $1 to win 40 for the Rams. Am I missing something here, James? I mean, the Rams, they won a Super Bowl with a similar roster not too long ago, and now they've got a healthy Cooper Kupp that's coming on strong towards the end of the season. Of course, Puka Nacua, one of the best rookie wide receivers we've ever seen in the NFL. And, Aaron Donald's still on the team. He may not be perennial all-pro Aaron Donald anymore, but he sure as hell is still Aaron Donald. And yeah, the Browns defense is awesome. The Browns offense is awesome with Joe Flacco. It's been better than it was with Deshaun Watson. Some interesting decisions will be have to be made in the offseason for them, especially if Joe Flacco goes ahead and wins his second Super Bowl MVP. So that's why I'm going to go ahead and recommend both of these, the Rams and the Browns. You bet both of them. If one of them hit, you turn a profit no matter what. A big profit at that. So that's why I'd take a couple of swings there. James, what are your thoughts on these Super Bowl odds?
Yes, there it might already be some of my money in the Browns.
Yeah.
Futures bet there. That's definitely a ticket that I took with that line. Probably knocked it down for everyone in America. I'm sorry.
Yeah, way to move the line, ass.
Just kidding. Sorry, guys. If I move a line, something's wrong with Vegas. The other number that stands out to me here is the Eagles. They were getting 950 at the start of the season. Now it's 1,800, so almost double. I get they're on a slow streak, but if they turn it around, they're still one of, if not the best team in their conference. And if that's the case, I think they can make it to a Super Bowl. If you got Eagles plus money, you can combine that with another team, depending on who they're facing, whether it be the 49ers, be it the Bills. Probably not either of those. I think that's a pretty valuable line for the Eagles. I know a lot of people are going to be like, yeah, but they've got the Buccaneers. They're a good team. I think they can beat the Cowboys. I don't know if they can beat the Ravens, but if I'm going to get 1,800 on this team, I like it. I'm going to take it.
Okay. I disagree. I mean, we'll talk about it more leading up to when we actually preview all of these games. I am on the side of the Eagles. We'll talk about it more, but were basically statistically frauds for the first half of the season. And for the second half of the season, we're actually frauds. So I think we're just, two coordinators, brand new coordinators for the team that seems like the NFL's figured out. Maybe they'll work out in the future, but it seems like this season there's not enough time to self-scout and figure this shit out and right the ship, even with the talent that they have on that roster. And the defense has just not been the same as it was the past couple of years, especially last year. A lot of young talent was added to the roster, and that young talent hasn't really panned out quite as well as I think the Eagles would have hoped. So I would be very on that. Maybe combine that bet with a 49ers. Combine that. You still, if you bet even amount of money on both teams, if one of them win, you come out ahead. So if that's your thought process, I kind of like that. But I don't know. Any news on
these top four? I wouldn't take any of these top four at the number.
I was going to ask, any news from the script writers on the Harbaugh double championship season?
Well, I mean, Michigan may or may not have their national championship taken away. We'll still find out about that.
Okay.
We'll see. We'll see if it counts in the year 2027. I'm very intrigued if I could get a line on will they remove Michigan's national championship for the sign stealing saga that has occurred. I think if Jim Harbaugh leaves for the NFL, I think we're going to be pretty sure that Michigan is going to have some sort of penalty. But the script, I think in this year, I think you're going to see the Ravens, and I think you're going to see the Browns. I think Ravens-Browns would be the funniest Super Bowl. I think that would be fantastic. I just really
AFC Championship. Sorry, James. AFC Championship is what you mean.
You're right. Sorry. Ravens-Browns there. And then I just want to see Joe Flacco win it all at this point. I think if Joe Flacco makes it to the Super Bowl, we're going to have another lights shutting off situation, which would be even better. A little repeat action. I mean, I think this year it's going to be somebody who's a veteran who's done a lot, who's earned it. So you're looking at Stafford, you're looking at Flacco. I still think this Niners team and these Ravens teams have weaknesses that can be exploited. And just not the value that you're looking for here. I could be totally wrong. Both these people could be in the Super Bowl, and I'd be happy to bet the Ravens over the 49ers in the Super Bowl, but these numbers just aren't good enough to bet. Don't take a future unless you're getting at least 4 digits, in my opinion.
These are pretty tight. In my opinion, it's you're looking for something that's on the better side of plus 400. Because if you can get 4 bets at plus 400, and both 2 of those teams make the Super Bowl, you're cashing in on that bet. But yeah, you're right. Like, I wouldn't want to bet the Bills at plus. I would want 4 digits for the Bills. I would want 4 digits for the Cowboys, and I would want plus 400 for either the Ravens or the Niners. So I just think they're tempting, because there's a pretty good chance that they win, but not so tempting because the odds of those hitting don't really justify the lack of payout that you're getting. And that's where the math comes into play. And we are, a big math show, like we like to brag about all the time here on What Are We Talking About with Jamie Jakes. Moving on to the actual games, starting with the Cleveland Browns going into Houston. Houston had a worse record than the Browns, of course, including a loss against the Browns earlier this season. But the Browns did not win their division. The Ravens won their division. So that's why the Browns are going to be traveling down to Houston to play in what I have heard is a very, very loud stadium, at least when the team is doing well. I'm going to pull up my notes here. The Browns, Joe Flacco is the second odds-on favorite for comeback player of the year. He has fantasy football weekly finishes in his 5 games starting. Of week 1, he started quarterback 13. Week 2, quarterback 10 fantasy football. Week 3, quarterback 9, quarterback 1, and quarterback 5, all against the Rams, Jags, Bears, Texans, and the Jets. The only below average pass defense in that group of 5 is actually the Texans. The Jets being a rather elite pass defense and defense as a whole, and the rest being slightly above average, with, I believe, the Jags being 17. So right about average for them as well. In terms of pass yardage per attempt by the opposing team. The Browns had the number 1 defense in terms of that rate, average pass yardage per attempt. The Browns went up against the number 1 strength of schedule in terms of opponent record, which is really, really impressive, with obviously massive wins. With PJ Walker went into San Francisco and won a game this season. People forget about that. That didn't just happen on accident. The Texans, on the other hand, are the 4th worst rushing offense. Where you can move the ball against this Browns team is big plays through the air, which they're bound to give up a half a big play every other week, basically. They'll give up a big play. And you can get after the Browns in the run game. The Texans cannot run the ball, which isn't good news. They also have lost Tank Dell earlier this season. The offense has kind of bounced back for a couple of games, but in my opinion, they're going to have a really, really tough time moving the ball against this Browns team with that loss of Tank Dell. The game that they met up in was 36-22. The Browns won easily. However, Davis Mills was the quarterback for the Texans for that game. We, of course, are getting CJ Stroud and not getting Tank Dell this week against the Browns. I have to take the Browns at -2.5 to cover this spread on the road in the playoffs. I think just matchup wise, Texans aren't going to be able to run the ball, which means they aren't going to be able to pass the ball against this Browns team, with Nico Collins being basically their only reliable target. Even last week in a game where they had a great game offensively, it was the Nico Collins show. And I got to believe Denzel Ward for the Cleveland Browns and the host of the defensive line that just got a nice break, is getting a little bit healthier as a whole, is just going to just come out and dominate. That defense is going to dominate for the Browns, and Joe Flacco is going to do what it takes and only make 2 Joe Flacco plays this game. He's going to have 2 Joe Flacco plays. It's going to be like a weird fumble, weird interception. Browns are going to be able to overcome it. And for that reason, I'm going to take the Browns -2. James, what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, the Browns are definitely a fantastic team. I do have a future on them. However, I am taking the Texans money line on this one. It is tough to beat a team twice. It is early in the playoff matchup. I do think that this Browns team, with Flacco leading them, hopefully will be locked in, but I think there's a chance here that they might be looking a little ahead of this game. I think they might be thinking it's a little too easy. And I think that if anything is going to happen, DeMarco Ryans is going to pull the kitchen sink out and throw it at. I think you're going to see everything possible to stop Flacco. You're going to see a lot of disguises, a lot of good blitzes, a lot of good rushes from Will Anderson and the rest of the company over there in Texas. And I just think there is a good chance, not a great chance, but I think there's a good chance that the Texans can pull this off at home. I think it is worth the 125 that I grabbed it at. I would still take it at 120. I put this game closer to a 1.5 to a 1. And so for that reason, I'm going to take the Texans side, because I think the game is going to be a lot closer than people think.
Yeah, so you have to ask yourself, so math-wise, also degenerate move out of you betting against your own future. So I do appreciate you doing that to yourself. However, I'm sure you can get 125s out there. You have to ask yourself, how much is this Texans home field worth? I would say, what would you say? 2.5, James? 2.5?
I would say it's 2 in recent history. This is the first playoff game they've legitimately had in a long time.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't know the exact value tomorrow, what it actually, or not tomorrow, Saturday, what it actually could be. But historically, it's at a 2 right now.
Okay. I would say this. I would give him 2.5, right? Which would push the line on an even field to the Browns being 5-point favorites. And I think on an even field, they should be 6-point favorites. So for that reason, I got to bet the Browns. So you're saying on an even field, it would be either even not calculating in the 2.5 would be a lot closer to an even game. So interesting stuff, Mr. James, out of you. Moving on to the next one, which will be the Miami Dolphins taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. Got wardrobe changes going on. The Dolphins are on a 2-game losing streak in games that were not particularly close. Best team they have beat all season has been the Cowboys, probably back 3 weeks ago. The best teams the Chiefs have beat, to answer the opposite side of the question, was either the Dolphins or Kirk Cousins and the Vikings, I would argue, way back. I believe that was in like week 3, early in the season, obviously before Kirk Cousins went down with his injury. Both of those wins were 7-point wins for what it's worth, including that Dolphins win, which was 21-14 this season. The lines have it at the Dolphins being a 4-point underdog to the Chiefs at Kansas City. Of course, that might be the only 3-point home field advantage that there still is in existence. The Chiefs, Travis Kelce has been banged up. I'm sure he'll play, We'll see how productive he is. The Dolphins on a pretty bad losing streak here coming into the playoffs, but they can beat this tier of Chiefs team. And I think this is a little bit too many points for the Dolphins to be getting. Now, if this is, have you checked the weather to this game yet, James? It's going to be at Kansas City.
-9 is the official forecast as of today.
Which is why I cannot bet the Dolphins. I'm going to have to lean the Dolphins +4, but that's just that. I mean, I did see a stat today that Tua is like 0-4 in games under 50 degrees this season. Of course, all of those being road games, so not surprising that you lose on the road, right? But the point of it all is this Dolphins team can't travel, and it's definitely concerning when we're talking about it being that cold in Kansas City. A lot of those Dolphins signed to the Miami Dolphins for a reason, and it wasn't because they like that part of town. They like the weather there. So, James, what are your thoughts on this one?
This isn't the Chiefs team that we've seen in the past. I think
it's
this
not.
Number and the public is still betting like this is the old Kansas City Chiefs, 100% going to make the Super Bowl and have a fantastic time. I truly have just no expectations from this Chiefs team. I would love to say that they're a fantastic team, and I honestly am shocked that they even made the playoffs. But they've got so many questions.
Yeah.
They're not really doing a good job. While
Thanks to their
Miami
division.
had a tough recent time, I'm kind of hoping for some snow on this one. Snow helps wide receivers. Snow helps the offense. The hope is the wind stays low and the snow flows. But with all that being said, 180 is just not close enough. I think we're taking a lot of recency bias. I think there's some bias in terms of who the Chiefs have been in the past. They're just not that right now. And so for that reason, I'm taking the Dolphins +180. I think there's value in that number. And I think this is probably going to be a game that's decided by 3 points. So 4.5 is great if you want to take that out there. You know me, I like the money lines. But 180 for this Miami team, if Jalen Waddle plays as well, I haven't seen this Chiefs team be able to stop anybody on defense effectively. And if you're going to tell me that A-Chain, Waddle, and Hill are all playing, I just don't know how the Chiefs are going to stop. That's the thing that's really making me say Miami is worth the money here. No matter if it's in an ice storm, maybe if we had the old ice bowl, the fog bowl back in the day, maybe that would affect this because then you can't throw downfield as much, but. As long as Tua can see and it's not too windy, I think they've got a damn good chance of winning this game.
James, sounds like you really liking the Dogs in the wild card round of the playoffs.
I love the Dogs.
Moving on
he said, Mom's on the couch. Let me go cuddle her.
Yeah, fair enough. Moving on to the Steelers and the Bills. This is the game. Honestly, I am least excited to watch for obvious reasons. The Bills are getting 10 points at home against the Steelers. So not a lot of credit given to the Steelers right here, even though they did sneak into the playoffs despite firing an offensive coordinator this season. At one point, people, even on this YouTube channel, were saying that Mike Tomlin should be fired. Now, that person has not been on since, has been invited back, but is not been able
that
to.
caveat in there.
Yeah, has been invited back. Shout out to Tony Mack. Great
podcast. You're
yeah, you're done. You're dead. No, it has been invited back. Haven't gotten a chance to cross paths again, but I think he will be. He is confirmed to be on a live stream. Tony Mack. Go ahead and subscribe to his YouTube channel as well. Has a lot of good football content on there. The Steelers have been able to run the ball kind of since firing Matt Canada, probably because they're less predictable with it. When Matt Canada was running the offense, it was astonishing how much times they ran the ball versus passed the ball when they were under center, and how much time they passed the ball versus ran the ball when they were in shotgun. They were basically telegraphing every single play that they were about to run, and it's not as predictable, and it seems to be schemed up wise a little bit better, blocking scheme wise, now that Matt Canada is no longer calling plays and is no longer in charge of that offense. The Beals, on the other hand, are red hot with a 5-game win streak, including wins over the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Dolphins. So they ran the gauntlet, and they needed to win these games to make the playoffs. They were on the outside looking in for a while there. And there was one point where I'm like, I don't think these Bills are going to make the playoffs. But they absolutely turned it around there. Kind of ever since Sean McDermott, their head coach, kind of got called out or raked through the coals or whatever you want to call it for like a shitty halftime speech or a shitty pregame speech from what I remember. It was like kind of weird. Team had his back, and look who we are. Look where we are now. The Beals in the playoffs, now one of the odds-on favorites to win the whole damn thing. So just a funny how storylines change from halfway through the season when you think you know everything to now at the end of the season when kind of everybody got bored of football and stopped paying attention. The Bills have been kind of winning football games. Steelers are on a 3-game winning streak of their own. However, those games were to Jake Browning and the Bengals. The Seahawks 3 weeks before they basically parted ways or canned or retired Pete Carroll. However, that's being reported as weird. And the Ravens practice squad in week 18. The Steelers, to their credit, beat Deshaun and the Browns in week 2 of this season. And in their 6th game of the season, they beat Stafford and the Rams. So they do have legit wins over legit teams, but it's been a while. But you can never count out a Mike Tomlin team. So for that reason, I have no choice but to recommend the Beals or the Steelers plus 10 and the Steelers money line at plus 300. Getting after those dogs, but I'm going to lean that. That's not going to be an official recommendation out of me. James, what are your thoughts?
I mean, we forget that this is actually a legitimate snow game. This is confirmed right now that it is going to be snowing during the game. Steelers are the away team, so they would be wearing what color?
White.
That's hard. That's hard to throw against. Let me tell you. And with the amount of vision that Josh Allen, no, I'm just kidding. That's not the reason why I did my pick. Did you really think that was my Jesus.
Yes. Yeah, I did, no. James.
No. This is getting to the point of Josh Allen's vision. I don't trust him. I don't believe in him. I think he plays to whatever level he's playing against. Pittsburgh Steelers, not super good quarterback-wise. Josh Allen plays down to it. I think this game is just going to be close. I think the Bills definitely win this game. I just don't see the 10 points. So I like Steelers plus 10. I think this is going to be a low-scoring affair. Shout out Najee Harris for having another 1,000-yard year, kind of a quiet 1,000-yard year. Third in a row, if I'm not mistaken. But I think this running game picks up. I think you're going to see, the Bills did a pretty good job of dismantling the Dolphins with the pass game. But I don't think they're as good against the run. I think the Steelers have a good opportunity to play this correctly, keep it tight, probably not win the game, but keep it to at least 3 points.
Yeah, and that's why I lean that direction. I like that. That's the way you're recommending, Mr. James. Moving on to the 3:30 game. The Green Bay Packers are playing the Dallas Cowboys. It will be here in Dallas-ish, Texas, Arlington, Texas. I am recording from Dallas. James also recording from Dallas. We saw, in my opinion, all 4 years of Jordan Love wrapped up into one season this season. We saw his rookie game, his rookie breakout. We saw his sophomore slump around the middle part of the season. We saw his third-year bounce back in the third quarter of the season. And now in the fourth quarter of the season, he just feels like a veteran. Right? Depending on your scoring for your fantasy football format, Jordan Love was the top 5 in fantasy football for quarterbacks this season. And I think as high as top 4, depending on your format, which I think would be surprising to a lot of people, especially with the injuries they've had on that offense with the weapons that he's had, both Dobbs and Watson missing significant time. And it's just been the Jaden Reed show over there out of Michigan State, rookie out of Michigan State. It's been ultra impressive for them as well. Packers on the defensive side of things have given up the 5th most rushing yards this season. The Cowboys are playing at home. They have lost 0, James, games at home this season. They are undefeated at home this season. And that's not because the home crowd is loud on defense. It's because they're quiet on offense. If you've ever been to Jerry World, you know it is not a particularly hard barn to play in. It's not a particularly loud barn to play in. My dad went to the Lions-Cowboys game with me on the 17th week of the season. And then 18th week of the season went to watch the Vikings play the Lions at Detroit. And he texted me before the game. He's like, hey, Ford Field is louder pregame than the Cowboys were for those 2-point conversions. Like, it's a different planet. So to Dak's credit, it is impressive that he is able to be undefeated at home despite having minimal home field advantage. The Packers are 7.5-point underdogs at Green Bay, or at the Cowboys Stadium. And that gives me no choice but to take the Packers at plus 7.5 to at least keep it close. Jordan Love's been great. The Cowboys defense has been good, but not unstoppable here late in the season. And it just doesn't feel like a game that the Cowboys can absolutely just dominate and run away with. Maybe they do, who knows? But feels like Jordan Love and that Packers offense is clicking on all cylinders. Last time I checked, Aaron Jones has been playing, which whenever Aaron Jones plays, they are an absolutely different team on offense, especially when he's full go and not splitting reps coming off of a hamstring injury. They've been unbelievable. So for that reason, I got to bet the Packers at plus 7.5. It's just the only thing that there is to do. James, what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, my thought process is on the same wavelength here. I think the Cowboys score a lot of points. I think the Packers also score a lot of points. I've got the over here. I've taken the over in this game. I think it's going to be a good old thrill.
Wow.
Say, get your popcorn ready.
Yeah, shootout, huh?
Yeah, unfortunately, when he did say get your popcorn ready, that was when we put the Bengals, and that season was beyond disappointing with him and Ocho Cinco. I got really excited for that, and it went absolutely nowhere. But this bet is probably going to go somewhere. Now, I think both these teams are going to come to play. I think it's going to be a very high offensive shootout. I think it's probably the best game to watch all week if you like shootouts and you like offense. So I think the over has a good chance of cashing here. I think this game is one that's also very likely to go into overtime, or if the Cowboys forget how to do clock management as they usually do against the Packers at home, might end up with them losing on the last second touchdown.
Okay. I'm with you there, Mr. James. Moving on to the 7:15 game, the night game. It's a big game for me because this is the first time I have seen my Detroit Lions play a home playoff game in my whole entire lifetime. Not even when I was like 1 year old, before I was conscious or remember anything. It was like when I was -1 was last time they hosted a playoff game after winning the division. I think they've won I think we saw a stat, they won 5 division championships, and they're one of the original teams in the NFL. And you're supposed to win every 4th year. That's just how just math works. But yeah, anyways, Detroit Lions have been disappointing my whole life. Not anymore though. But this game is every single Detroit Lions fan worst nightmare come true. That's right. Matt Stafford is coming home to play Detroit in a playoff game. And they have already said, there was a Twitter account that said, we're banning Stafford jerseys for this game. Fans don't show up in Stafford jerseys, which I do agree with, by the way. We need to make it, maybe give him a little round of applause when he trots out of the tunnel for warm-ups. But when it's go time in Detroit, hey, baby, you ain't going to be able to hear shit. And this Detroit Lions defense needs all the help they can get against a healthy Cooper Kupp and a healthy Puka Nacua, or as they refer to him in the draft process, BYU. The Rams are very average defensively and slightly above average offensively. Of course, that is calculated in with Stafford and Cooper Kupp missing significant amount of games this season. So they would be slightly above average if I think both players played all season and Cooper Kupp seems to be as healthy as he's ever been. This feels like a game where both teams could cover the spread, could cover the over by themselves. So I have to take over 51.5 The Lions can stop the run. I think both teams are going to probably throw 45, 50 balls each in this game. It's going to be a shootout in Detroit, in the Dome. So give me the over, because why wouldn't I take that? James, what do you think?
Last time this Rams team won anything of note with Stafford, Von Miller and Jalen Ramsey were on their defense. Their defense is atrocious now. I think this Lions team can easily control the game by running the ball. I think they're going to get an early lead, and I think they're going to keep that lead for a long time. I think this actually might be one of the least interesting games. I think there's a lot of hype around it that I don't think Stafford gives a shit. I don't think the Lions fans should give a shit if he's coming back. It's the time now. You traded him away, and he got a ring, and he should be happy about it. There should be no ill feelings towards this organization either on Stafford's side. I think you should just go out there and ball out. And if any coach is going to have his team ready to ball out in the playoffs, it's Dan fucking Campbell. So give me the Lions. Give me the Lions -3 on this one. I think this is an easy -3.
So I agree with you in that I think Dan Campbell gets the boys fired up and balls out at a playoff game. However, you have to admit this is this team's first shot at the playoffs. Like, there's a couple of OGs. No, there aren't. There aren't any OGs on this team that were on the team the last time the Lions were in the playoffs. Nor is there any organizational going up to like the actual owner. From my memory, serving me correctly.
Yeah.
So it's been a minute, and there's no history of playoffs on this Detroit Lions team. But I do agree with you. For some reason, I think Dan Campbell gets the guys fired. I do think Stafford cares. I think Stafford cares very greatly because he retweeted a post about when he announced that he was leaving Detroit, when he got traded from Detroit, basically like his thank you goodbye video from Detroit. Very emotional. Then the jersey ban came from that random Twitter account, for the Lions random Twitter account. And then Kelly Stafford commented, "Hey, this isn't nice," basically, is what Kelly Stafford said. Which, by the way, can't wait to see them on this season of quarterbacks on Netflix. That'll be something that'll be really, really fun to follow this offseason. But anyways, I think Stafford cares.
You know who really has some caring and motivation, though?
Dan Campbell.
Jared Goff. How great of a middle fielder would this be to the Rams and to Sean McVay to say, you traded me away. You want in the short term, but guess what? Fuck you. I'm eliminating you in the Lions first playoff. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah, and that's actually something that's not being, like, I'm taking the words out of your mouth, I'm sure, not being talked about enough, right, James? Like,
not at all.
This is
not at all.
This is a Jared Goff revenge game.
Yeah, he wants that. Way more than Stafford wants. I'll tell you that. He's pissed.
Oh yeah,
he is pissed.
He is pissed, and I think there's just such a big chip on the shoulder for this Detroit Lions team. Maybe it's just my history of me being a fan of the team that's getting me off of that -3. But boy, we're going to be live streaming that. My cousin is coming into town, flying down here from Detroit, Michigan, to live stream the game with me here.
By himself?
Well, sort of. With his wings, flying on down. But that's a big one. And if him and I can just sit back and watch Jared Goff kick the piss out of Matt Stafford and the Rams, man, oh man, Mr. James, I would love to see that. You know what else I'm going to love to see?
What?
This Monday night game. This Philadelphia, Tampa Bay game. I can't wait. Okay, another wardrobe change going on. All you need to know on the Buccaneers side of things is that this roster is very similar to the roster that won the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. And Baker Mayfield had Zins in his pocket at practice wearing his creamsicle QB jersey this week. So you know he's locked in. The Eagles, on the other hand, were gaining a lot of attention for being frauds about halfway through the season, about 2/3 through the season, because statistically they were frauds despite their win record. And ever since people started talking about that, they fell apart and basically identified themselves as the frauds that they are, including a 17-point loss in a must-win game last week to the New York Giants and Tyrod Taylor. They are on a 1-5 run currently, with their only win being against the Giants like 2 weeks ago. So give me Baker Mayfield. Give me the 3 points. Half a bet on the 3 points. Give me Baker Mayfield to zin it up in the fourth quarter and win the game outright at plus 130. Eagles are frauds. Eagles are on the road. I don't know what I'm missing. I don't know why the Bucs are not favorites in this game. I've said it all season. If you give me Baker Mayfield a couple points, you give me Baker Mayfield and plus money, give me Baker Mayfield. Undefeated in wild card rounds in the playoffs, by the way, Baker Mayfield. So what do you think about that, James?
If nicotine addiction was a good barometer of whether somebody would be a good NFL quarterback, I've got a lot of relatives who would be Tom Brady that way by now.
James, by the way, have you zinned before? Have you tried that before?
Hell no, I'm not touching nicotine. My grandpa died because of heart failure due to smoking too much. I'm not touching nicotine with a 10-foot pole. I do cigars once a year when I beat Tennessee. That's it.
Yeah, I was going to say I have cigars on occasion, but Coach Brady, shout out to Coach Brady, D-Town CrossFit, offered me some Zins one day, and like after a workout or whatever, we were hanging out in the gym, and I tried some, left it in for like 2 minutes, like violently sick. Couldn't eat all night, like almost threw up like before I started coaching CrossFit. And then tried it 3 more times, went to the well 3 more times, almost threw up every single time. And Coach Brady's like, hey man, stop taking my Zins and almost throwing up. And I said, yeah, good point. It seems like it's not for me. So that's my history of Zins. Sorry to interrupt you, James. Back to the Eagles and the Buccaneers.
Wait, it's better than traditional chew, because traditional chew has fiberglass in it to cut your gums to get the nicotine in there faster. So
that's what I hear.
Yeah, so his impact is probably a little better. I've got the Eagles in this one. And my main thesis revolves around this. Baker Mayfield's last 2 games have been at home against the New Orleans Saints. Lost by 10. Away against the Panthers with a win to win and must be in the playoffs. They put up 9 points. Both those teams are worse teams than the Eagles by a good margin. And I get what is happening with the Eagles. They're on a downslide. I get it. This team still won 11 games, whether you like it or not. And do I think that the Eagles are a lot better team than the Panthers and the Saints? I also think they're a better team than the Buccaneers. And I get it. It's in Tampa Bay. It's a nice weather for this team, honestly. I think they're going to be ready to go. I think they're going to be ready to go. I think this team is going to show some levels that we haven't seen. I don't think this team makes it past this round, but I do think that they get it together for this round. Because I honestly think that if they lose, you might have a new head coach next year. And I think if Nick Sirianni is going to do anything, he's going to pull out all the stops for this game. Because if he wins this game, he for sure is hired next year. There's a question mark if he loses this game, because that's an epic proportion of collapse from that start of the season to where they are.
Yeah. And so, like we said, the collapse, 2 different coordinators. We said earlier that in my opinion, I think a lot of that is due to the Eagles struggling towards the end because those new coordinators kind of getting figured out and scouted by the NFL. The book's out on these guys. They can't stop the run whatsoever. What does Baker Mayfield need to operate an offense? A running game and at least 2 mediocre wide receivers. He's got, 2-3 pretty damn good receivers and a great running back in Rachaad White over there. I just see them starting to pound the rock early, get a lead, starting to pound the rock late, run the clock out. Baker Mayfield goes home with a win. That's what I see. That's what I see coming, James. Any last thoughts on any of these games, buddy?
I just have too many question marks about the Bucs defense being able to stop the Eagles. I don't doubt that Baker Mayfield can put up points.
Book's out.
I get the book's out, but you know who also can look at the book and figure out what other teams are probably doing against them? the Eagles. If they prepare accordingly, this team should win. And
yeah, but they're coming off of 2 must-win games against the Cardinals and Kyler Murray, who sucked against everybody except for the Eagles, and Tyrod Taylor and the Giants. Like, if you were going to turn it around, you got to turn it around against the Cardinals and the Giants, James.
If you're gonna pull out some shitty games, you better pull them out before the playoffs rather than in the playoffs. So I think you're gonna see a bounce back here. I think we're just thinking a little too short term. And if you looked at these teams in a vacuum, if these wins had happened at different points for either of these teams, you'd be thinking differently about this game. There's no doubt about it. Like if the Eagles had lost a game earlier in the year, but they'd won one against the Giants, if they'd won one against the Cardinals, wouldn't you be way more on board with the Eagles?
Yeah, but they didn't. That's not. They tanked at the end of the season.
You can learn from the end of the season, though. You can learn from.
But they're 1-5.
Well, you know what the beauty of all of this is?
That we're going to get to watch this.
We'll find out on Monday, and I'll be at your house.
Yeah, we are going to be live streaming that. I did invite you to one of them. Which one are you coming to? Do you remember off the top of your head?
Monday is the one that.
So you'll be here.
So hopefully that's the one. Hopefully that's the one that you want me to come to. I won't be there for Sunday. I will be recovering.
Yeah, I think I have it on my phone.
Orleans, so good luck.
Oh, that's right. I definitely have you for Monday night. That's right. So despite all this, will you wear my Kelly Green Jalen Hurts jersey for me, or do I have to wear it? Okay. Do you have a Buccaneers jersey?
This is my Eagles jersey. So, do I have a Buccaneers?
Okay, I'm going to give you. Yeah.
I have a Mike Alstott jersey that you're more than welcome to wear for the game.
Okay, bring that over for me. I'll wear that, and you'll have to wear my Kelly Green that my brother got for me for Christmas. I asked for it, but I'm not going to wear it.
Okay. All right, deal. Are they wearing Kelly Green? I feel like if they're not wearing Kelly Green, I should wear the normal green.
No, wear Kelly Green. Okay. You have to.
It's your podcast.
It's the rules. Thank you for being on, James. NFL insider, not a public figure. Light just went out. Do you have lighting in your house? Do you actually have like production value to these things?
You are in my office space, and I do have a little light up there.
A ring light?
Because this is what it looks like when I don't have that light on it. It kind of looks like I'm in a closet.
Looks horrible. Yeah. But anyways, thank you for being on. My name is Jamie Jakes. Follow me at JMJKS on, there you go, on X. Please subscribe to the channel. Leave a like. Leave a comment. If you're going to take receipts on us, which I love, if you're taking receipts on us, I love, but you gotta comment that you agree with us before the game happens. Okay. I really respect that. I'll always shout you out that you're right in our comment section. But if you're going to come in and hashtag freezing cold takes in a video that you didn't comment on until the game was over, that's a little bit weird. So don't do that. Don't do that. That's weird. Doesn't boost engagement either.
Has someone done that? Who's doing that?
Yeah, it happened this week.
Is it
for the Miami Dolphins and Bills game? No, it was me.
Oh,
it was directed at me.
Too.
But yeah, it was like 2 days after the game happened, which if the person was going through like hundreds of like preview prediction episodes and then doing hashtag freezing cold takes under each of those, I kind of respect that a little bit more. But it kind of felt like he watched the episode, didn't comment, and then circled back 2 days later after the Dolphins lost and was like, "Oh, you're a dumbass." So don't do that.
You
right?
put your picks out here. You come on this show and you do your picks.
But anyways, it didn't help
any of this. I don't have any of this.
yeah, buddy. Money. Look at that. Anyways, yes, James. Anything else to say to the audience?
No. Really happy to be on the podcast. Thanks for sitting through it with us. Comment your picks if you want to be on the hashtag freezing cold takes. Throw them in there. Comment below. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you guys, and good night.